On today's episode, we're interviewing the So Luxury founders. So Luxury is the baby of two besties, Amanda and Shylah, that have started this product line based around bath time. Now, we haven't really touched on episodes in previous discussions talking about partnerships within business, but these two girls know how to do it and they still know how to have fun while doing it. So let's dive into this episode and chat all things business partner, as well as having that supportive family and partnerships throughout your business.
Actually, funnily enough, now that Shylah's got baby Onyx here, this is Amanda speaking, I started Bébé de Luxe, which is the predecessor of So Luxury, when I was on maternity leave with my son Ryan, I guess 6 years ago now.
Wow.
And I was sort of just bored on maternity leave and didn't know what to do with myself, and started it was a Christmas gift initially, actually. And I don't know if you've seen our jars that we did for a while, those flip top glass jars. So I gifted a bunch of friends who had babies at the same time with our coconut and oat milk bath. And it was actually an original formula that I developed, just mixing some powdered coconut milk and some oatmeal, and gifted it to friends at Christmas. And of course, babies all have dry skin around winter and during the holidays. So everybody was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You should sell it. And being bored on maternity leave, I was like, yeah, I'm going to give this a go. And everything just flowed so almost effortlessly. I got our first store. I think I launched, was it end of March 2015 was my official launch.
Wow.
And within a month, we had our first store on Granville Island, which, if you know Granville Island, to me, that was just such a huge win, because it's a place where so many people from around the world visit. And I was just so thrilled. And we still work with that same retailer now, Delish General Store. So they'll always have a special place in our hearts. And it just went from there, sale upon sale. And I went back from mat leave to my day job and brought on actually Shylah's mom as production for me, because I couldn't do both production and shipping and website while I was working full time. And we worked like that for a year and a half or so, and things got even bigger and bigger and beyond our capacity. And her mom said to me, well, why don't you chat with Shylah? And everybody always says you don't want to pair business with friends. Like, don't go into business with friends. It's not a good idea. It's not going to work. Don't do this. But it's worked out absolutely perfectly since. We just had our conversation initially in April of 2017.
Yeah, it would have been
2017. And we talked about it, and that's when we started the whole rebrand. But the first lesson in business that we both learned, I had learned it already, but Shylah was learning it as we went, is patience, and nothing happens as quickly as you want. So starting in April, we started the design process for our rebrand. We actually hired out to get a logo, and nothing was like what we wanted. So I think it ended up being one of Shylah's own sketches that we were like, this is what we want our logo to be, and then took that to a graphic designer. And Shylah became the master at sourcing packaging and everything sourcing. And we officially wrapped up Bébé de Luxe and announced our new brand, So Luxury, in November of 2017, just in time for Black Friday. And it was a really crazy time, because we decided to make a big splash. We were going to do a Black Friday sale of 50% off to launch. And holy moly, was it huge for us at the time. Now, when we look back, we kind of giggle, because it's like, it was so huge for us at the time, but now it's like, yeah, it's peanuts, but it was so exciting. And we actually oversold, funnily enough, because we didn't expect to do as well as we did for that sale. And we had only air shipped a certain number of bags for packaging.
I totally forgot about that. I should send you a picture of what we had to do. Making mouse love.
We oversold, but we didn't want to disappoint anyone. So we were like, scramble. And this is at the time of like right before Christmas. Everybody's like waiting for their orders. So we ended up mishmashing and printing some clear labels to stick on white bags. And we were so upset about it. We were just like, this is not what it's supposed to look like. It's not a luxury brand.
I have like serious, like, this is Shylah now, like OCD when it comes to anything like looks wise. So I was just like irked. I was like, we can't release this, having like total melties, like, but people didn't even actually care. They just wanted the cocoa oat. So
of course, not one single person mentioned it.
no.
And after that was a lesson learned, but it was a great first launch, and it's been kind of gangbusters since then. Growth is just exponential year over year, and
That's amazing.
yeah, we now have, how many employees do we have? 7 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, even when the first order, like what you were saying with Black Friday, that's so crazy because I have a product line as well, and it's for lash extensions. And we did the same thing. We did the 50% off, and exact same thing happened. I mean, we did have our quantity numbers, so we kind of had an idea, but I said the same thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I look back now at that first sale we did, and yeah, it kind of looks like peanuts now, but that, looking back, I feel like entrepreneurs need to do that more often, right? They need to reflect on how far they have come. So that's amazing. That's such a great story too, of like the packaging and something you'll never forget, right? It makes you who you are.
I did
right?
there. I pushed it to the back of my mind because it was so bothersome to me. But
We actually do have a brand archive sort of that we started, and we didn't do it from the outset. It was only since we moved, only in the last year or so, we decided we were going to start keeping packaging as we progressed, and then found some things, and we had actually one of those sticker bags, and it's on our brand archive shelves, and it's just, it really does show how far we've come.
That's such a good idea. I never thought to do that, to have like a shelf of like kind of the phases and the growth you've gone through. That's such a good idea.
And all the lessons you've learned along the way. Like, we tried to, my signature under my previous brand was the glass jar, but it was a round logo on a square glass jar. That was fine. If the logo misprinted and was a little bit askew, you didn't actually know. But a square logo on a square jar, you sure.
if it's off by 1 millimeter.
Especially with Shylah. Shylah has line OCD. So she would see them and she would just be like, this looks, we can't sell this. This looks terrible. We can't sell this. So that was a big lesson learned for us, and why we no longer actually offer the jars.
We had to get rid of so many.
Well, and the things you learn as you go, right? There's so many things. And I think that's why we love doing the podcast, is people actually get to listen to the founders and hear all the things when they look at that product. Now they're gonna look at the label, not the
Oh no, don't look at the label.
Looking at and making sure everything's aligned, but little things as entrepreneurs we take pride in, right? They're our firstborn, they're our first babies. That's the way I look at it as well.
Yeah, so many lessons.
So many.
It totally is. And I think that's where Shylah and I make really great complementary partners. She's very OCD about some things and really holds on to like getting it absolutely perfect. And I'll just be like, okay, enough. It looks good.
No, she says it's fine. And let me tell you about that word, because I hate it.
Oh yeah.
It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine.
It's when you don't feel like dealing with something that's fine.
You definitely need that yin and yang. I totally get that too.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the I'm fine, or it's fine, or whatever. It's gonna be fine.
Well, the rest of those are quite like a daily thing. Everything's fine. It's fine, but not when it comes to like packaging.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when it came to like the formulations and really like kind of figuring out exactly what your line was going to be, was it first of all inspired from the baby lines, or did you always have the idea of it was going to be bigger than that?
So initially when I had the brand Bébé de Luxe before, it was a baby line. And when Shylah and I had our first conversation, I know she was so nervous to mention it. And she was like, what do you think of a rebrand to get away from being just a baby line? And it was like, of course it was like, oh my God, that's my baby. But at the same time, it's like 100%. If we're going to grow to the level that we want to grow to, we can't just be a baby line. It's actually for everyone. You don't want to have to say that on every single post, like, oh, not just for babies, even though we're called Bébé de Luxe. So Yeah, initially it was a baby line, and then with the intent, as soon as we rebranded, to grow and expand. And now we do have products that are like sort of targeted towards babies. Like our cocoa oat, I think, will always be sort of a baby product, because it's an all natural replacement for soap, head to toe, gets them clean, keeps their skin soft, and combats any eczema or rashes that they have. So that's definitely going to probably always be a baby product primarily. But we do now have some products which aren't recommended for use on babies, like our muscle salves are for sore achy muscles after working out or anything like that. So we're really trying to expand, and we've got huge plans for this year.
That's amazing. Well, with both of your backgrounds, what were you always kind of planning to be an entrepreneur, or was it just kind of the way of how the Christmas gift idea came up and you started like making these, and then you saw the business? Or was it something you always thought you would have, like a 9-to-5 job, like a traditional job, and then this just all kind of naturally happened?
Shylah, I'll speak for her here. She's always been inclined to be an entrepreneur, and has had various things along the way. Like you were going to do
I did like cakes, I did hair,
like
it was always kind of my
a dabble. She was always dabbling in something and doing well at whatever she did, but didn't ever find the thing that really lit her soul up. I don't think.
Exactly.
And then for myself, I was a 9-to-5er at a law firm. I thought I was going to be there a lifer. Like I was like, I'll be here till I'm on pension. Like I actually really enjoyed my job. I was a paralegal. I loved the family that I created there. And funnily enough, only in January of this year, so 2021, 6 years after we started all of this, the beginning, I finally quit that day job. So
oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, and especially moms, because I think
it's scary
in the mom groups, everybody goes on mat leave now and is like, I want to start a business. This was sort of something that like came about in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years. This became a thing, like starting a business, and because e-commerce became so much more accessible to everyone with Shopify and all of those things, and blogging and influencing. It's a whole new market of jobs. So I think the thing that people don't understand is, for a business to get to a level where you're going to replace an income, it's not overnight.
No,
and especially for me, I was a single mom for a long time, and letting go of the security of a salary and a pension and benefits was really, it just wasn't feasible for me for a long time. And I probably overstayed there, and I could have left sooner and come on payroll with the company earlier, but we're all very conservative and safe with how we run the company financially. So it came about at exactly the right time.
Well, and I think as listeners listening to this too, like, for example, people think like all of a sudden you come up with this idea, the product gets shipped, and ta-da, you've got a company. That is not, oh my gosh, if it was, everyone would have their own product line, right? It takes a long time of even getting the branding, like you were saying, and the logos and the name, and testing things out and learning along the way. And I always say I was kind of an entrepreneur before it became cool. I feel like everyone's like, that's like the new thing, right? Everyone wants to have their own business or their side hustle and a hobby and have e-commerce and have an online store. But people don't realize the journey and the struggle it takes to get to that point. Like quitting your full-time job to pursue your passion, really. Like that.
Truly, it's much more blood, sweat, tears, effort. Like I've actually told probably 100 people, like, there's so much value in a 9-to-5 that you go to work, clock in, do your job. Sure, you might bring home a little stress with you. You might be thinking about something you didn't get finished or whatnot, but that's your 9-to-5. And really you're working for someone else. And there's a lot of value in that. When you become an entrepreneur and a business owner, you are never
actually 24/7.
Off. It's actually 24/7. Like Shylah literally is up in the middle of the night with the baby and placing orders online and doing things. And it's absolutely crazy. It's like the amount of effort that goes into creating a business that will be truly successful enough for you to support a family on.
100%, 100%. And I think too, like I look at entrepreneurs and moms, like prime example what the two of you are doing, like that security, like you said, of having that 9 to 5, knowing you have that salary, knowing what you're really earning week to week, month to month. And entrepreneurship, as you guys know, right, it can have its highs and lows. You always have to make sure you can pay your staff before you can pay you. Like even with our spa here in Muskoka, Ontario, like I've never pulled a paycheck. I've never taken personal expenses from that account. And it's like, people don't realize that. People think, oh, you're raking in all this money with all these different businesses people have started or people have created. But it's like, you don't know the expenses at the end of the day, what it actually takes to run a business. Mentally, you can't even put amount on that. How much time and exhaustion, actually right?
Incredible. And the stress level that comes along with being responsible, not only for yourself, but other people. Like when you realize that what you're doing now is paying someone else's mortgage as well, there's a stress level that does come along with that.
Absolutely. Now with the pandemic as well, how did that affect your business?
To be honest, 2020 was a benchmark year for us. I think people were staying home, so they were bathing more. We also, timing wise, maybe, I don't know if it was the best, but everything works out the way that it does. The year before, December 2019, we had actually purchased another small business in the same industry with the aim of bringing their products under our umbrella. And it actually took us nearly a year to get those products ready to launch and rolled out. So that also had a big impact on our bottom line for 2020, which we did grow and we did really well, but we added more products. And people loved them. They were already an established brand that people did love as well. So I think 2020 was difficult it provided new challenges for sourcing and whatnot. Like our main ingredient, coconut, we ordered our very first 20-foot container of it. Like we would order by pallets previously, but we ordered a 20-foot container in July and we didn't get it until mid-December.
And we needed it.
And we needed it. We were like, okay, if this doesn't actually get here,
boxes like from just random places, just
paying out the nose,
way too much money,
because you can't just let go of your number one seller either just because you're having a sourcing issue.
Yeah.
And the pandemic was the reason for that. Like shipping from overseas, ocean shipping was hit really hard, and buying space to have a 20-foot container shipped over was extra pricey and extra hard to come by.
Oh my gosh, the whole overseas shipping, like half the time I'm like, did my box fall off the ship? Like where the heck is it?
Honestly.
Oh gosh. So do you formulate right in-house then at your warehouse? So you get the ingredients to you and then you formulate at your location?
Generally, yes, most of our products. However, last year, another big growth point for us was for our coconut milk bath. We knew all along, and so did our customers, that it was really great for all sorts of skin issues, eczema, rashes. It's soothing, all those things. But Health Canada, you're not actually allowed to make health claims about a product.
Yeah.
We were manufacturing under a cosmetic sort of license with Health Canada, which they do have requirements. You have to submit your formulas to Health Canada and they have to approve them. But in order to make any health claims about it, you have to prove that it actually does what you're trying to say it does. So we got our natural product number last year. I don't even remember. Sometime in 2020, we got this. Yeah. And again, even getting that was at least a year
process
or more. It was I think it was about 18 months of a process for us. Then when we got it, we're like, oh, we should actually announce this, and we have to change the packaging and all these things. So even once we had the number, rolling it out was another 3-4 months. Yeah. And so with the natural product number and being recognized by Health Canada as a product that is effective against skin issues like eczema, comes a tighter manufacturing restriction where you have to manufacture at what is called a GMP facility.
Mhm.
And so now our signature product, the cocoa oat milk bath, is manufactured out of house. It doesn't mean that us manufacturing here is any less good
Mhm.
or rigorous. We do have guidelines to follow and everything. It's just that it's much more stringent at a GMP. And so the product is actually tested for microbials and all sorts of things before it rolls out to the consumer, whereas cosmetics don't have quite the same requirements.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, the kind of that back end of how the restrictions all work. Like, I'm obviously in the cosmetic world, so the licensing and such is so different. Like what you're saying, I'm like, oh wow, I didn't know that. So that's really interesting, of like you said, the GMP, of learning how it's like your natural number, your like organic numbers, how all of that certifications happen within Canada. And I'm sure in the States it's different, in all different parts of the world it can vary on how strict they are, I guess is the best way to explain it.
Yeah, it is. It's, of course, it's when I first started making the cocoa oat in my own kitchen in a small KitchenAid, it's completely different from what we manufacture now on such a larger scale. Like, it's
bananas when you think about it.
It actually is. Like, yeah,
we're getting back about like 20 pallets of like coke, and we don't have the space.
Yeah. Now the warehouse. So you were saying that you're having to grow to a bigger warehouse already this year?
Yeah.
Well, actually, so in 2017, when we did rebrand as So Luxury, we got our first warehouse, and it was about 2,200 square feet. And when we moved in, I think we had 4 pallets in a 2,200 square foot warehouse. And like, we like makeshift up a shipping table. Like, it was pretty ghetto and DIY. And we didn't have a lot of money to spend on stuff like that. Like, getting a lease for 2,200 square feet was like, okay, this is a huge expense for us now monthly as a business. And then we were there for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we were absolutely bursting at the seams. Like, Shylah would literally go climbing over pallets to get to other pallets and be like, if you don't hear from me, I'm back in that corner.
Oh my God.
Like, send us a photo of where she was heading to like dig for things. And so we were bursting at the seams. And then luckily a unit in our same building came up, and it's a double size unit. So we're in 4,400 square feet now.
Wow.
But again, we're bursting at the seams. And I think every month at the very least, we're reshifting and moving things to try and make more room. Because like Shylah said, we've got 20 pallets coming in, and we're like, oh gosh, where do those go?
Oh my gosh, you guys, it reminds me of, so with our lash company, I haven't got a warehouse yet, but that's definitely going to be happening here shortly. And my boyfriend goes down to the basement at our house, and he's like, why are these boxes here? I'm like starting to store things at home because we're running out of room at the storage units and at my shop. So I completely get it. So when you were saying, for when it started at your home, when did it kind of hit you that you were like, I'm on to something, of where I'm going to need a warehouse? Was it when the order quantity started getting larger, or you realized you were kind of on to something and you jumped on it before that order quantity kind of happened? Or what was that transition like?
No, I think this says a lot about our business, but we always seem to get to a point of max capacity before we make the next jump. Because it's like, you're operating for so long and your head's down and you're just doing the work. You almost don't even think far enough in advance to be like, okay, this isn't going to work for much longer. And then it gets to a boiling point and you're like, okay, I literally don't have any more room for one single box. We got to do something. That being said,
be a good thing.
Flying by the seat of your pants isn't the best business plan. And we are getting much better at it. Like, we are actively looking for more space now. But in the small town where we live, there isn't really a lot out there. And it's highly a competitive market because there isn't much space available. So
that's exactly what that's exactly what I'm going through here. Like even just finding a storage unit, like a heated, because I need it climatized, and just trying to find a storage unit that's available, it's just like next to impossible. So even like looking for a warehouse, I'm like, am I nuts? Is that even a thing here? I, to be honest, haven't even looked at it, because I'm like, what's happening right now, it's working. Like until, like you said, like the bursting at the seams is kind of like a good analogy, because that's literally what it is. You just make it work. And I think as women, if it's working, if it's keeping the cost down, if it still works, why fix it until you get to that point of the realization, like, okay, we are onto something here. We're going to get to the next level. Because I think that's where a lot of businesses get in trouble, where they're spending these expenses, or they want to start this business and they just go out, get the biggest and the best things, when really you're like, is this actually going to make money, or does this actually make sense? Or am I going to get that return?
100%. And I think that's another area that Shylah and I are so complementary, is Shylah's very good at being conservative about things, whereas I'm like, just do it, just do it, just do it. But she reins it in and holds us back and ensures that we are actually operating in the black and not in the red. So it's the best partnership we could have ever asked for.
Wow, Amanda, we sound like we're the same person. I'm the exact same.
Your Shylah.
Yeah. Well, my team's the same. Like you need that person that's like kind of the realistic one. That's like, whoa, okay, like let's see if this is like we're in reality here. Like let's bring it in, let's bring it back to reality. That's awesome though, because you do need that yin and yang when it comes to business. You do need someone to be the like, okay, this is gonna work. Let's throw it out there. Let's see what happens. But then you also need that person who's that perfectionist that's gonna make sure it's like perfect. So that it's so glad I love when partnerships like this are just like seamless, like it just works. And I think too, were you friends before? Like obviously you guys met like the spring of 2017 is kind of when the whole thing had started. Now how long ago did you meet? Like how did your relationship first take off?
We actually have known each other since grade 9. So we were 14 years old. I don't know if I want to tell you how old we are now.
Let's just say 20 plus years.
20 plus years. So yeah, and like instantly, right when we met, it was just like we've like,
been very good friends like this whole time. So it just, yeah.
Your work wives. That's what I call my girls. We're all work wives.
Oh, totally.
That's awesome. So are your kids similar in age then as well?
No, I finally just like pulled the trigger here with the COVID baby. So he's only 7 weeks old, Onyx, but Ryan is 6.
He's 6.5, coming up on 7 years old.
7 in July.
Oh wow,
so
that's
there's
awesome.
A bit of an age gap, but
so it works well for the business too, because like I'm well established in parenting at this point, and Shylah's just getting there. So
thank God Amanda's off, because I'm like, oh my God, what have I done?
Well, yeah, especially with you not working your 9-to-5 job, Amanda, too. It's probably really helped in the sense of scaling the business now that a new baby's on board too.
100%. And again, that was one of those decisions that we made when it was like, there's no other decision to be made. Like, you just have to do this now because Shylah's about to have a baby.
It was literally, I was like 39 and a half weeks pregnant.
And I was like,
okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'm like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
And then me being me, are you sure? I can come back next week. She's like, no, you can't. Like,
that's awesome. Well, and I also think too, it's as women and being business owners, that is a huge decision, right? Of bringing, like having children and running a business, running a household. There's a lot of hats to be worn as a woman in business. Personally, I don't have children, but it's definitely something where I started my businesses when I was 20. And I kind of, to be honest, I'm glad I did it when I was so young, because now I'm like, okay, I'm kind of at the point, like, I feel like all my friends have kids and I'm one of the only ones who doesn't, but I'm like, my businesses are my babies, and I'm glad they're mature enough, they're independent, they can run themselves. So then when real life hits and I do have my own child one day, that I'm able to hopefully spend more one-on-one time when that does happen. But that's something like, as women in business and being mothers, what is some of your biggest advice you would tell our listeners who are doing the same thing?
Oh, you can't do it all, to be honest. you can do lots of things, but you'll never be able to give everything 100%. And I think actually this is where that's going. The quote, who was it that actually said it? Was it not Brene Brown? I don't know. Somebody said, oh, Nora Roberts actually said, as a mom, a female in business, you have all these balls that you're juggling at all times. And say there's 50 balls. Some of them are glass and some of them are plastic. And glass balls aren't always your kids or your job or your marriage. Sometimes the glass balls are just a paper that needs to be written, or a deadline that needs to be met, or the laundry that needs to be done. Whatever is most important in that moment is the ball that you have to keep in the air. And the plastic balls are going to fall, and you have to let them fall. And you can't keep all the balls in the air at the same time. It's just not possible. So recognizing what is important in the moment. And obviously there's times where, of course, your family is going to come absolutely first over anything else. But then there's lots of times where something to do with your business, especially as a growing business, and if you want to make this into something that's going to support your family, there's going to be lots of times where the business absolutely comes first. And you just really have to have a supportive partner, for one, and know how to manage it and juggle it. And yeah, it's not easy, that's for sure. So if the house doesn't get clean, hire a cleaner. You can't cook dinner every night on top of all the other things. And it's really, I think women, there's so much expected of us, and the mental load that we carry being the matriarch of the family, and the things that you have to schedule, the dentist appointments and doctor's appointments, get the kids to school, make the lunches, like, oh, but I'm also a business owner, so I have to do all of these other things. Like, there's a lot. So you need help. And I think that's the most important part, is recognizing you can't do it all before you have a meltdown.
Which I'm still not good at.
First thing is admitting it. No.
That was Amanda talking, and now it's Shylah. But she's totally right. And I'm slowly realizing it.
Well, especially now that you have Onyx, like, it's,
before it was different. When you don't have kids, it's totally different.
And then as soon as you do, it's like,
I was literally 20 hours. I would work 20 hours a day. Like, I'm not shitting you. Like, just doing all the things. And like, and I was totally cool. And I understand, like, well, I didn't actually understand being a parent, but like now, like, I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I get it. Like, you need the break. You need to like go and deal with your like family life. And I didn't have a problem with her like having a family, obviously, but like, you just fully don't understand until you're
yeah, it's one of those things. It's like the moms that say, like, I saw someone this morning, an influencer posted something like, oh, my kid, before I had kids, I was only going to have wooden Montessori toys, and then a photo of all the plastic fun toys that she has now. And before I was a mom, my kids were only going to eat organic. And then she shows a Happy Meal, and it's so true. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And
then you know.
Then you know.
Well, and I think social media too, I love following influencers that are real, that show like the imperfections and the raw truth behind of what's actually happening, because it is a story. Our Instagram, our whole social media, right? Like, you have that kind of like that picture perfect idea of what it's going to be like you said, they're going to eat organic, they're going to play with specific toys, like that type of thing. And I think that's why as entrepreneurs, we think that way of our own businesses too, right? We think, oh, we're going to launch this business and this is what it's going to be like. And then you're in it. It's like motherhood, I'm sure too, right? You're in it and you're like, oh gosh, this is what it's really like. This is the real behind the scenes. And that's why I think as entrepreneurs and sharing our story, and even moms, like I follow so many moms on social media just because of my friend group. And I think it's so interesting on hearing the stories and the realization people are having. But listening to podcasts now, that's a huge platform that people are utilizing to share their stories, and social media and having that sounding board. But some of my closest friends, especially through the pandemic, I've noticed, are on social media. People reaching out like, hi, how are you doing? Like, I've been thinking about you. Or just because you can send those voice messages, you can check in how everyone's doing. Now, with your businesses and having each other, I'm sure both of you being at different stages of motherhood too has really helped each other. Like you said, when Amanda, when you had your son, it was so much easier for you to be able to step back a little bit more. Well, you were still able to run the business, but then having that 9 to 5, and then Shylah having with your new baby, having that balance where Amanda can also probably help you a little bit in the sense of motherhood and that understanding and that sympathy of what happens with having a newborn as well.
100%. It definitely all flows exactly the way that it's meant to. And we couldn't have, I don't think two moms at the same stage could successfully enter into the partnership at the level that we did, because it was, for a long time, it was Shylah and actually her husband Joel who were pulling a lot of the weight while I was, and because we were such good friends too, Shylah understood I was going through a divorce, I was selling my house, I was moving, I was working, I was momming, I was doing all these things.
So many things.
So it's like Shylah picked up the slack for a long time, and so did her husband Joel, and it just made for a really great partnership, because there hasn't ever been any resentment or upset in our partnership, which was the thing that everybody warns you about. Is like, even when we were signing our initial partnership agreement, the lawyers were like, well, we don't actually advise you to sign a 50-50 partnership agreement. Like, what happens if you don't agree? But we've never actually encountered that. So, and even if we don't necessarily 100% agree with the other, we'll give some leeway for the one who feels most passionately about it to take it and run with it. And you know what? Sometimes things aren't a win. Like, there was one thing that I was super passionate about that ended up was a freaking flop, was we wanted to do paper tubes for ourselves. And I was like, people want this. They want to be able to toss them in the food waste bin. They don't want plastic. And as much as I was passionate about that and we tried it, it was a fail. It just doesn't work. And there's a reason why we have to use plastics sometimes. And we're always on the lookout for better plastics and recyclable plastics and eventually biodegradable plastics. But sometimes you have to use what's actually there. And that was a flop. Like, we threw out or recycled actually tens of thousands of them because it just didn't work, but we couldn't continue selling them that way. So that was our only option, was to cut our loss and move on.
Well, sometimes it's like a compromise. It's like the compromise in a partnership of any sort, right? Whether it's a working relationship, a marriage, a friendship, there's so many things that the compromise, and like you said, the passion behind it. You can tell when someone's passionate about something. They just light up on a whole different level, and they want to pursue that because it is a passion, and that's why we're in business, right?
100%. Yeah, I think the Tony Robbins quote about finding the problems you like, finding the solutions to, is like the secret to life.
Yeah.
Like, a life without problems is not.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen, and it wouldn't even be a good life. Like, you get so much thrill out of having an issue that needs to be solved and finding that resolution and fixing it. Like, you need those things to thrive, I think, or at least we do.
100%. And that's why I think the whole product line and why e-commerce has taken off so much too. And even with online shopping, like, look at online shopping now. Like, we don't even need to leave where we're sitting right now to buy a bunch of stuff. And on that note, I see that you guys are on like well.ca. You guys have like really scaled in the sense of e-commerce. So where was like some huge pivotal points for you where you were like, we need to scale this than just our e-commerce online?
Well, we did initially. We've had many discussions about it over the last few years. At one point, we're like, well, do we just only sell retail online to our own customers and keep all of the percentage for ourselves? And then it was like, no, let's do wholesale. But what is our goal with wholesale? Do we want to stick with the mom and pop shops? Do we want to go really big? And well.ca was actually so exciting for us when we got that. We were like, holy crap, this is amazing. But over the years, we've had to modify our partnership with them as well, because you do recognize that with Well offering $35, any order over $35 ships free, it does hit your own margins when we aren't big enough to offer that. Our shipping for free is on orders over 100. So we've had to modify our partnership with them, but they've worked with us along the way, and it still works the way that we are now. But it really gains that brand recognition and gets you out there when you're on a site like well.ca that is so trusted and big. Like it was huge for us as a small Canadian brand.
Yeah, it's such a brilliant idea. Well, we were on Amazon for a while for a few of our products, but same thing, like it was just when we had started and we just didn't have, because we had to pay to store our products at their warehouse. And there was just so many different things that were going on. And I was like, all of these people are one of our main customers, direct consumer through our e-commerce. And so we ended up not pursuing it any longer with Amazon Prime, but then who knows, down the road, it might be something else we'll do. But I think as people listening or people who are purchasing product through like well.ca or Amazon and those type of things, it's a huge thing for small businesses, like even any business, to be able to have their products on that type of platform. But like you said, it's worth it in the sense of the recognition, because you're like, oh my gosh, I remember when I saw our ad on Amazon, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like a legit business now. Like it was like this weird feeling when really I was like, I applied for it and I got it. So was it through well.ca, was it quite the process in order to get on there, or how was that experience?
I think they reached out to us initially, and we were just so over the moon and thrilled. We agreed to whatever the terms were at the time. And without recognizing, because when you're so small, you don't realize that you have room to negotiate and all of these things. And you're just obviously so excited to be like, oh my God, well.ca reached out to us and wants our stuff on their website. Like, this is huge. So we just agreed to whatever terms they had. And same thing, there are fees for storage and whatnot. But we've negotiated our terms and it's a bit different now, and it still works for us and we're thrilled to be on there.
That's amazing. Well, and I think too, like you said, you're in a small town just outside of Vancouver. And it's crazy to think that a lot of business owners I've been speaking to on the podcast are from small towns. Like, I don't know if it's like the grind we have or something. I don't know what it is, but are you both from, like, born and raised in the same town then, because you met in grade 9, like you mentioned?
I was born a little bit closer to Vancouver in Burnaby, but like,
same.
We've been here since I was 10.
Elementary school. Yeah. We both moved to Mission. Our families moved here when we were in elementary school, and it was quite a small town then, like not even, I don't even know, maybe 20, 30,000 people. And I don't know where we're at now, but it's still very small town. And like it's mind blowing actually. My son goes to the same elementary school that I went to, and like we'll go to the same high school we went to. So it is small town.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Now, with being part of like the community and things like that, I was doing some research online, and I also see that you donate as well to the Basket of Love for Down syndrome. Now,
yeah, that's actually a girlfriend of mine that I worked with at my day job. Her son Connor was born and he has Down syndrome, and she started this nonprofit organization that gifts families who are expecting babies with Down syndrome with baskets to welcome them to the community in a positive way and give information and really showcase that Down syndrome, while it is what is it, a condition or a medical diagnosis that everybody is so afraid of, there's still wonderful, incredible, welcoming community and family out there to welcome you, and you're not alone. So she is super inspiring to me, and I love her dearly, and we'll always donate to that. We donate to a lot of things locally. There's something called Starfish Backpack in our town, where kids with food insecurity, often they're fed breakfast and lunch at school, but over the weekends they don't have access to food. So the Starfish Backpacks will prepare backpacks for them to take home filled with food for the weekend. So we donate to that. Most recently, we have started donating clothing to our local high school, and we're just working on a big purchase now of hoodies to donate to our old high school for kids that don't have warm clothes and don't have much. So and we always donate to the food bank and other things. Like, it's really important for us to give back. And I don't know if that comes with growing up here and knowing how small we are, and we're not in a really wealthy community. So giving back, I think, is just something that's important to us. And luckily we're in a business that allows us to do that.
That's amazing. And I think as consumers too, like knowing that when they are buying product, there's someone that's being helped on the other side of that purchase.
Yeah, we're definitely trying to, as awkward as it feels to share about donating, you almost feel like you're tooting your own horn a bit, but we're trying to get better at sharing about it, because not to build ourselves up, but to inspire others to do the same. Because something that we started doing was ordering with Uline, our shipping orders, you get free gifts over a certain amount. And the free gifts, we would just pick random things for the longest time. But then we realized, oh, they have coats. We can pick coats. And we started donating new coats that we got from our orders. And that's sort of what spurred this idea of, let's bulk buy a bunch of hoodies to donate so these kids have some warm clothing to wear. So it's awkward to share, but we're trying to get better about it.
But I think too, as an entrepreneur, I think that's like kind of what we were saying, right? The reason why we do something, we see a problem and we want to fix it. And I think as getting to that level of, yes, the success of being able to do donations and give back to the community, but like that is the level that inspires others, right? Like I think of so many people that would be listening to this podcast right now and saying like, wow, like, when you've made it when you're able to give back to something so dear to your heart, like you said, your hometown, being able to drive around, going, yes, to the warehouse, and you see a coat that you've donated to a child, or seeing a backpack that they, has fed a child for that weekend. Like that's just such a beautiful thing. And you should be so proud of yourselves for being able to offer that, because you shouldn't be scared to toot your own horn on that level at all. Like that is like, it's amazing. It's just mind blowing.
Well, thank you. We're pretty excited about all of the things that we do get to do by being business owners now. And we're only recently starting to actually really step into our role, because for a long time, I think we were just so focused on working and growing the business and keeping our heads down. Like there's lots of drama in business as well. And just, you have to focus on your own brand and just do what you're doing. And that's where you'll see the results. And then same thing, everything you put into it comes back. And same thing with being able to donate. Whatever you are able to put out into the world, that comes back to you. So it's just the circle of life, really.
Yeah. And like the way the universe works, it that blows my mind so much. And the positive energies you put out into the universe, and what, like you said, what will be returned, and how you speak to people, and the whole grind, right? There's a lot of noise out in the world, especially right now with the pandemic. And if you are able to really focus, put your head down, work, do what you're good at doing. And even that, in the sense of both of you, like you both sound like you have your niche that you're good at, in the sense of the business, kind of behind the scenes as well. And I think what the two of you have built is just absolutely beautiful. And the products and everything, your social media, your marketing, how you've grown, like we were saying, to well.ca and lots of other platforms. And from a small town, I think that's just such an incredible thing both of you have built. And now also with both of you now being mothers as well, anything's possible, right?
It really is. Like, I know everybody says that, like it's just, you're one decision away from a completely different life, but it's so true. And if you would have asked either of us 5 years ago where we thought we would be, it wasn't here. That's for sure.
None of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't having kids.
Well, and I think too of laughing about it, like both of you are, right? Like it's a journey. That's the whole part of it, right? Of just each day, you never know what's going to happen. And there is struggles we sometimes, like the emotional roller coaster as entrepreneurs we go through, but then you can look at your website, or you can look at someone doing a review, or someone doing a story on Instagram talking about your product, and you've made something for someone to enjoy.
Yeah. And really doing it with your best friend. And with the pandemic, we were forced to stay in each other's bubble. So we were very blessed in that way, that we still had each other through all of that. And we have each other through all of what we do every day. And the laughter and giggles and silliness that happens here is like,
I can't imagine having to make the decisions, we actually have, I don't even know if we should tell you this. I found this thing on Amazon, and it's like a magnetic fortune decision maker. We call it the magic decision maker. And I'm not going to lie to you, there's been far too many business decisions made by a magnetic
like big
ball.
business decisions too.
Oh yeah, so that's how we roll.
Well, and I think too, sometimes, like you said, sometimes you just got to take a chance. Like if you're not uncomfortable, you're not moving forward.
Yeah, no, that's true. And actually sometimes, and it's funny because there's been times where we use the magic decision maker, and then it's like gives us an answer and we're like, no, we're doing it. And then like, so we don't even listen to it sometimes when we know actually like dear in our hearts that like what's actually we should be doing, but we still ask it.
Yeah, it forces you to really recognize what you want.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get the answer you were looking for, you're like, hey, let's ask again.
Yeah.
No, let's just do it.
2 out of 3.
I think too, like I'm a solo entrepreneur, but I really treat my team as part of the business, because as being a solo entrepreneur, it can be lonely. You have those decisions to make, but I'm always asking what everyone else thinks or what their thoughts are, really, because I'm a very impulse person. And I'm just kind of like what Amanda and I were saying, like, it's just like, okay, yep, this works, let's go with it. Sometimes I'm not thinking the logistics of, is it actually going to work, the numbers, everything behind it. But that's why I love my team so much, because they can call me out on those things. They can say like, okay, let's bring this back to reality. Like, so they are kind of like my magnetic Amazon decision maker sometimes, because I'm like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Maybe I should just put my ideas and what I think is right, and really listen to what the consumer, what makes sense in my business. So it's great to have that sounding board. And like you said, having supportive partners makes a huge difference. Having that support system behind you as a business owner is so important.
100%. Part of my journey was on my own when I was a single mom. And then now I do have a really supportive partner, and just seeing the difference in myself, having somebody that does pick up some of the weight at home. And he coincidentally also works for our business now as an employee. So it's, you need that. And Shylah and Joel have always had that. And it's something like, it was like, kind of like goals. Like if you don't get what Shylah and Joel have, like you're not doing it right, kind of thing. And so they've been a great role model for everybody, because
you're a cutie.
And now they have baby Onyx, who's the sweetest, and we all just love him to death.
Aw. And I think too, having that supportive partner, but then also it's hard. My boyfriend's an entrepreneur as well. So I feel like all we talk about is work. All we live and breathe is work, basically. Is it hard for you having your partner's part of the business? Is it hard to come home and turn it off? Do you kind of have like any rules that you kind of have set for at home when you are living your...
I don't think there's any off, to be honest. Like you might put away your phone for
half an hour.
Maybe an hour.
Yeah.
Or like something, but like it's constant. And I think
it's kind of nice though, having like Joel and Paul here, because like they get it, right? Like they know that there's like all of the things to do all of the time. Like it would be much harder, I think, if they worked other places
and had different expectations of us too. Yeah. Because especially in the day and age we're in, where social media is so important, and people aren't buying products to buy products, they're buying connection, they're buying relationships. In order to have a successful brand, you can't just post something on the internet and not interact with anyone.
Yes.
It won't go anywhere. A lot of it is the relationships you develop with the people, your followers and your shoppers and their friends that they recommend. And when they have a question, like if you don't answer it for 4 days, like they've already moved on to something else. So
I know
the expectation in the time of technology of instant replies for everything, it creates an environment where you aren't able to really have any downtime. And I'm not complaining in any way, because we have the technology to be able to do it, but it's just no, you definitely need a partner that can understand that and be a part of it, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Your communication on your social media, like I remember I sent a DM asking a question about I think it was one of the soap bars, and someone responded, I think within like a second of me sending it, and it was just
That's
like
Amanda. She's like
Yeah.
on it. She's
Yeah.
our like little social media guru. Like she's the best, like customer service and all of our media is, that's her baby, and she's so good at it. Like I can't even like think about anybody else doing it, because it's like, no, you're not going to do it right. Like you won't
Yeah.
be Amanda.
And
Mhm.
100%, I wouldn't let it go. Somebody recently asked us if we were considering outsourcing our social media, and I was like, not a chance. Like,
Yeah. Well, and two, like it's so funny. The more and more you're mentioning these things, Amanda, I'm like, okay, I just for our product line gave it to our new marketing team, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I have to just let it go, because it's kind of like the whole house cleaner thing we touched on, like outsourcing things, because I have 2 other social media pages I'm still running. But I'm like, okay, I did not go to school for social media. That is not my thing. I have 20 other things I could be doing right now, but I love it and I'm so passionate about it. So I try to just do the spa marketing now and then my personal brand, but it's hard like to let it go. It really is. And if you love it, if it's your passion, you just keep rocking it, because you're doing an amazing job. That was something I like fell in love with, was the social media presence you have, as well as like the customer service was unbelievable. I was mind blown.
Yeah, she, like you, had no training either, so she's just all natural.
well, and I think, but that's sort of the beauty of starting when I did, was nobody had training. This was relatively
Yeah,
a new, it was a whole new market and a whole new world, and learning as you go, I think, is so valuable. Like, I mean, kids now obviously have experience with social media from the time they're born. Yeah, basically. And but starting from the ground up with Instagram, and when we did, I think was super valuable. And learning as you go is, I don't know. I think it's, for me, better than school and education.
training.
Like hands-on doing it is how I learn best. So
I'm the exact same. Like I went to aesthetics school, but I don't have a business degree at all. I have a 6-month diploma program, and like I suffer from learning disabilities and things like that as well. But I'm like, I outsource. I don't even really write any of my own personal emails anymore. Like a lot of them I outsource now. And that was something where you can teach business, but you can't teach like the in-depth business as like entrepreneurship. It is like, I swear, if people like, I don't even know how they would even make a program about it, to be honest. And I feel like
I don't think you could. It's something you have to experience, because every day is different. Every set of issues is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, I feel like a lot of people who do take business, a lot of them are like, how do you start a business? Like people who have business degrees and diplomas, sometimes are still like, oh my gosh, where do I start? Right. But I know as like an entrepreneur too, it's the learning. Like you said, thank goodness for YouTube and Google. Those are like my go-to. I'm sure you're the same, ladies. So
for real, that like my life in parenting right now is straight Google. Like, how did people do this? Like, how did our parents raise us? Like, I have no clue. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm always like, okay, I turned out okay. So I'm sure they figured it out some way, one way or another.
Exactly. That I give them all high fives. Props to our parents.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this was awesome, ladies. I loved connecting with you. And I know with obviously social media and things like that, it definitely makes it easier to be able to connect. And where are the best places for people to find your brand and be able to purchase from you?
So luxury.ca, obviously Instagram, so luxury @Luxury Inc. And then we're on Facebook too. And you can just search the exact same thing.
Awesome. Good. This is unbelievable. I think I have like, I'm going to just look at your packaging so different now. I'm going to look like just with every even your social media, knowing that you truly are the people behind it instead of a marketing team. I think that's amazing. Like, I admire both of you so much. And I think this is just a great podcast for moms to listen to, as well as people wanting to get into the industry of e-commerce and things like that, but really realizing they don't have to have it all. They can one step at a time. They don't have to go with the biggest warehouse right off the get-go. They can start with a KitchenAid mixer in their kitchen and kind of figure it out as they go when it comes to any business, right?
100%. Everything is figure outable.